Welcome to Gainesville, Florida, home of the Gator Nationals. It's Tuesday before the race, and we're here in the afternoon, and we're going to try and get one test session in. Now, normally at the racetrack that we're going to be racing at for the national event, they don't allow us to be on that track for 1 week in advance. But being it's the beginning of the year, NHRA offers live testing the first Tuesday and Wednesday before the race, just to help some people out for the first part of the race. So we're coming off our win from Bradenton, Florida at the pro race event, and everybody's saying, hey, what are you guys doing with that $250,000 you won? Well, that's not necessarily the case. Now, what happens is that if everything was lined up, dotted, and we had massive amounts of people and all this other things and a lot of entries, yeah, maybe the payout might have been that much, but I'm going to tell you it was an eighth of that. You can figure it up yourself. But here's the deal. We got paid for testing. We got to race and have a great time, and it was a great show, and hopefully we'll be back in Bradenton next year because it's a lot of fun. Now, originally, we weren't going to test on Tuesday. We were just going to do Wednesday only, but the weather doesn't look so good for Wednesday. So we're trying to get one in tonight before the rain comes in tomorrow. So after we warm this thing up, I'll go and take the computer card out of the race pack, and we'll go inside between myself and Ryan Elliott. We'll look at all the channel functions and everything that we normally look up on a warm-up and make sure that we have all of our functions and everything going on it, and that we make sure that we got the right fuel amount at stage and we got the right amount of tug on the clutch, timing is correct, all those kinds of things. And before we can put the panels on this thing and get her on the old drag strip. Now, one thing about testing is the track prepared like it's going to be to when you're going to race. And I'm going to have to say we didn't see that. Now, I've set the car up like I normally would for this track temperature and what conditions I kind of see. So we're going to see if it sticks. That's going to tell us a lot about what kind of track prep that we have. And looking at the results, I would have to say that it wasn't there. And then looking at the track, you can tell, it's okay here on the starting line, but when you get out here past a tree, it kind of looks like it turns into shit. And it's a matter of, cars running on it and not being dragged enough. And you can kind of just see how all these cars are getting loose in this one area. Well, now it's Wednesday, and we've already prepped the car. We went back and looked at all the race pack stuff, and we couldn't see any reason why this thing should have came loose. But anyway, so we're going to try it again. Now we're out here as early as we can, and there are a lot of cars testing, so the wait time in the staging lanes is super long. But we're going to hit the old gas again here and see what she does. Well, that might have been a little worse. And we didn't go up there to run slow, don't get me wrong. But so far, this track has shown me it's not normal. So we've come up here for the third test session, and you can tell by the exhaust. Look how crazy the wind is. Well, the problem is that wind is blowing from the back behind that building, and it's blowing all kinds of track out, or all kinds of trash out on the track. And I can't say that's a good thing. Now, sometimes things happen in drag racing that are beyond your control. Now, I've had this car up on the starting line 160 some times and only had to shut it off once. And today is number 2. It's not the fact that we're shutting it off, but this thing's not going in reverse. Now, we have yet, since we've put this car together, starting in 2024, ever had this happen. But sometimes God has a bigger plan. Maybe there's something that you don't know about, and you shouldn't be making this lap right now. Here, I'm talking to Sean. He can't get it in reverse. So I said, you know what? Just go ahead and drive it to the other end. There's no sense of us going out there and pushing it back all this way and trying to hook it up. So we sent him on the other end. We put it in the pit, and we found out we had a problem with the reverser. The problem with the reverser was it has a set screw that has a detent ball on it that kind of holds the reverser arm from switching from neutral to reverse in sync. It kind of came out and allowed the arm to slide out and get in the way interference-wise with a bolt, and that's what caused the problem. We had about 25 minutes to turn this thing around to get back in the stage lanes before they closed to make another hit. You can obviously see the wind picked back up again, and we probably even should pull the wires to start this thing. Sometimes there's transition areas that become an issue. And if you look where the sun is landing, right where the car is right now, and before it is actually shade. And sometimes those transitions actually will give you problems. Yep, once again, I don't think it's actually the tune-up in the car. I think it's the track that we're running on. Well, it's Thursday now, and we're prepping the car for this weekend. And we start racing, qualifying on Friday, but we have another issue. So this is a billet cover that goes on top of the rear end. One of the guys that worked for us was trying to tap a hole in the back of it, and actually broke the tap off inside of it. Now, this thing costs $1,000, $1,000 for this cover. But we have a secret weapon. It's called a Lincoln Square Wave TIG 200. That's what's going to help me get this puppy out of here. Now, if you watched some of my videos in the past, I've showed you my skill on how I get broken taps, bolts, all these kinds of different things out of different materials in one way. And I have the best success with this way. Now, you're not going to drill a 1024 tap out of this cover. You're going to have quite the arsenal of drill bits to do that, and then you're taking a chance of it slipping off of the hardness of the tap and then making another hole basically in the cover. So what I do is I weld against it. So I will weld and start building that puddle up out of the hole. I'm connecting it to the tap and just slowly building it up and building it up. You can see where I'm getting this nice bubble coming up out of the hole. It's very important that that first part of that weld is connected to that tap really well, and just completely bring that thing clear up out of the cover like that. Okay, here's the trick. What do you think? It's gonna work. I hope so. Right in front of the baby. So this has a little too much sensitivity. Menu. Sensitivity. Enter.
Off the search.
So that bubble that I made on top of the tap, I am connecting it to the nut. Two things that are happening. We're giving ourselves something that we can put a wrench on and try and back this tap out with, and we're also concentrating the heat just on the tap and not on the material around it. So in steel situations, where this is aluminum actually, that really helps quite a bit. And even with, say, you had a broken exhaust stud, this is definitely the way to do it. Here's the test. Come on, baby. It's called using a non-bottoming tap in a bottoming tap. Not good. So every time I do something good, they give me a sticker. This one's very appropriate.
Nice, 379. Whoa, man, oh, big crash down there, and it's actually a blown tire. A blown tire for Mercier. I saw stuff flying through the air, Joe, and I thought he had gotten into it. But Mercier has a blown tire, 379 for 323.
It's Friday night qualifying. This is my friend Dan Mercier. This is what happened. Now, what they think happened on this thing is that it actually may have ran over something, because it actually, when he lifted, is when the tire started to come apart, but it was already deflating. There's going to be more story on that here in just a little bit, but I want you to watch our first pass from Friday night, Q1. Here we go. Now keep in mind, we just tested on this track a day ago, and we did not have good results. So what's a crew chief supposed to do? Back it way down and try and get it down through there? Or go with your gut, look at the track, make the right decisions, and just trying to ship it down through there, somewhat conservative, but not too conservative. And if you do that, you have a good chance of shaking the tires. So I'm going with my gut. We're just going to ship her down through there and see what happens. 376, 330 miles an hour. I played it a little too conservative. But you know what? If we hadn't have tested, I probably would have went up there and probably ran a low 70. We always confer with Brian Karate after the run. We do share information with each other, and so whatever I can share with him, I'm always glad to do. Now, rain has delayed this whole session, and so now we're running pretty late. The track's getting cold. We're going to finish up the warm-up here and get this old girl back up on the starting line again. But this time, I'm not playing around. We need to throw down a little bit. Now, that qualifying spot is super important because it gives you lane choice if you're in the top 8. And on race day, that's pretty darn important. In the cars that I tune, I have found out that you need to be pretty darn aggressive when those track temps are definitely below 85 degrees because the tire just doesn't want to stay around early part of the run. Now, one thing the normal fan doesn't understand is that not only do you have to add clutch to some of these things, but you can actually make clutch with these cars by adding horsepower to them. So when you get to situations like this, you definitely are stepping on the motor, you're stepping on the clutch. It's a combination of things happening to make this thing go down the track right. I honestly think that sounds like a jet taking off, but we ran 369 at 332 miles an hour. It's our best speed that we've ever ran, and it was just a great run.
Season now, these teams actually got their catalog of cars. Look at data from last year. The overall results seem like that's really big on this team.
It really has. You know, we got a great team, we got a bunch of great sponsors, but it was really cool that we were able to put this car together and kind of film the whole thing, you know, and go to Bradenton and test and have really good luck and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm a big handling oil fan, but I'm a bigger red line fan because that's what we have in that car, and it's a real hot rod.
That's my shameless plug for Redline Oil, best oil in the industry. Now, this is Dan Mercier's car. So what it did is it crushed in the pipe on the bottom of the frame rail. So what I did is I had those guys cut that piece of tubing out. We had them locate some thick wall 1 3/4 tubing. And the thing is we've got to machine this down to about 1 3/10. So if any of those guys know what it takes to cut down solid chrome moly like that, it takes a little while, about 3 hours. So I got Max in there to help run the lathe while I'm over there figuring out what we're doing on Saturday, but it looks like it might be a rain out on Saturday. So anyway, we're machining this thing down so we can put this car back together for Dan Mercier and have him going again on Sunday. Now, this car was originally built by Tony Durhammer, and he worked for us at Terry McMillan. So this is our old car. And now what we're doing is we're putting these slugs inside the lower frame rail. You see we've rosetted the lower pipe so we can tell where these slugs are at. So it's 1.5 inch tubing, that is 095, and we're gonna stick in the 1 3/10 tubing, which is 1/8 inch thick now. So it's going to double up that tube in that critical area. Now, a lot of guys won't attempt this at the racetrack, but you know what? I'm not scared. Now, one of the guys helping me is Serge Blachette. I hope I said that right. Very French, but the most knowledgeable guy I know. Now, he has tuned a bunch of hydroplane boats and has won championships with Dan. And he's just an amazing guy. Very, very smart. But his English isn't that great.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
I'm going to continue to fit this piece so that we can put it in place here. And then we'll have, you see the rosette holes that are there. So that's going to allow NHRA to know, yes, we have doubled this tube in these areas. But I need to get this thing conformed very well, and it has to be a really nice fit to this tube in order to take that load. Now, what goes underneath this tube is actually what we call the anti-skid block. That block is what hit the ground when he blew the tire, and it caused it to kind of cave in that tubing at the very bottom where that was connected. But you can see how thick this piece is that we're adding in. There'll be one on each side. So that's going to be way stronger than it's ever been. Now the trick is that we're going to have that one piece that's already back on the left-hand side in the old tube, and then the new piece that's going to go forward is stuck into the new piece of pipe that we have, and we've got to knock it forward at the same time. So we're going to have two 6-inch pieces in there, but we've got to be able to move them once we get this piece in. On the back part of the frame rail, I've left a little bit sticking out so we have something to hold on to. And I've got Serge in the back, and we're going to push the forward tube forward. Now think about it. We can't go too far. If we go too far, it's going to be hard as hell to retract that thing back into the tube. So it's kind of a one-shot kind of deal here. So we got to be very careful. And keep in mind, we have two pieces in here. So we're going past one to get to the first one. You can see here I'm using the flashlight to get this thing lined up. You can see I went past first hole, and now we're working on the second hole. We've got to grab another piece of tubing here to get a little bit longer so that we can push this inner part even forward more.
Get past one to get to the other, maybe? Yeah, that should work. Okay, easy. Right there.
Finish.
Yep. A little bit, maybe a touch. I think it'd be okay. Just a little. Yeah. Now we can work on this one. I'll use the hammer for that one. Yep. Getting closer, but not there yet. Oh yeah, it's going. Come on. Yep. Easy. 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 Yep. That's it.
And just like that, we've got it in place. Now keep in think, now 95 plus 125 thick, it's thicker than it's ever been. And we're going to get this thing, get it started welding up. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rosette the spuds on each end to keep those in place. I'm going to let it float for a little bit as I weld the other stuff up, so not to distort the back end or get this back end twisted. Just to give you guys a little background, this used to be Terry McMillan's car. Dan Mercier bought it, and Dan also bought another car from Terry back in the past that I helped him with. But, you know, Dan's a good friend of mine, and he's also a fellow competitor. But I like to say that, you know, friendships go way past that, and, you know, I don't mind helping Dan get this old hot rod back going again, because they make this big, long trip from Canada to be here, and for them just to pack up and drive all the way back, it's senseless when we can actually do a good repair. Now, Mother Nature took care of us a little bit because it rained all day. So I was able to, once they cancel it, come down here and get this repair done. So again, I'm welding the spuds in the original frame rail first. I'm letting the center part actually float, and I will get those tacked in place. Then I will tack the upright to the new piece. Then I will come back, weld it, and then actually do the rest of the rosette welds.
See the. Okay. Here's that one inserted.
Now I'm just going to straighten the tubing a little bit as far as the way it's twisted. I'm just making my holes all line up. And then I'm also making it even gap on each end of the new pipe to the old pipe. There's a couple things that I really don't like to do. Number one is weld upside down. Two, be in an uncomfortable position while welding. And three, having a ton of humidity in the air from raining all day and sweating inside of a welding helmet. All these things equal bad stuff. You can't see out the helmet half the time, and it's just a real pain in the butt. I'm 59 years old. I don't like laying around on my back welding upside down anymore. Those days are long and gone. Those are for the young guys now that can buzz around up and down off their legs real fast. And you know what? As you get older, some of this stuff ain't happening as fast. After about 3.5 hours, we got Dan all ready to go, and he gets to actually race on Sunday. Here we are, early in the morning. The weather doesn't look that great here, Sunday at the Gator Nationals. But guess what? We got here early too. It's not good. The problem is the humidity is super high. And for the track, that's usually not a good indication of rubber sticking and adhering to anything. But we're up for the challenge. The guys are all ready. Let's fire this thing up. Everyone always asks, we started up on one mag, then we have them isolated. So then we will start it up on the second mag and then turn on the nitro to make sure that both mag sets are working. Conditions are cold. The barometer has gotten better. There's all kinds of things that have happened. And definitely, this is nothing like the past 2 days have been. So we're going to have to make a lot of changes in order to get this thing down to this racetrack this morning. But guess what? There's inclement weather coming in and out. I think it's going to be a long day. it's race day, and we're really 3 hours earlier than we would normally be, kind of, because of daylight savings time or whatever. We had to advance our mags today 1 hour, and then we have rain, so they started it, instead of being 11 o'clock in the morning, they started at 9:30, and so really 9:30 is going to be 8:30, which means we always are here three or half hours beforehand. So we've been here since 5:45 this morning or something like that, which is really 4:45 if you can cipher all that. Anyway, starting just to sprinkle just a little bit outside, and we need to run in less than an hour. So the problem is the track's going to be like 70 degrees. The outside temperature is like 63, 64 degrees. And it's going to be a tough day of racing. The window of making it past the tree right now is getting thinner and thinner. And so you have to make all the best educated guesses that you can to get your old hot rod through there. So I think we've got it. We're gonna find out. We picked the 8th pair. Could either be first pair or the last pair. And I usually don't base my car off of what other people do, but sometimes you just don't want that extra variable of being the first car out. So I picked 8th pair. So we'll let Josh Hart and Clay Milliken be the first pair out there, and we'll see what they do. Hell, they might win. They might run new world records. You never know. And that'll just be information, I guess, that we can look at and go. But anyway, we usually don't base our car off anybody else's shit. So anyway, it's going to be an exciting day. Hopefully, we can start this year off better than we did last year. Last year we smoked the tires first round, and but I'll say this: that we ain't trying to run slow today. We got to get after it, and a lot of times is when the track's really good. If you don't get after it, then you're behind, and then you're throwing up. So we'll see what this old Sean Reed Trucking Red Line Oil Star Racer belts. Who else? Oh, lots of great people like Brown Man and Nitro So and Matco Tools, All American guys. Heck, there's all kinds of them.
Yeah.
But anyway, Dart and Sleeves. Bradco helps us out with all of our CO2 stuff and needs and things like that. So anyway, let's see what this old girl can do. An aerial view of the track is a pretty good indication of what we're dealing with on this Sunday.
You would expect to see the chassis on the car just wrecked. And it was, but they got it fixed overnight with the assistance of the NHRA Tech Department and some other local racers. So that Mercier crew has been thrashing all night long, and now they got to run Trip Tatum, your 2022 winner of this event.
So Dan's car's on the other side of the track. I wanted to show you this run because this is after we spent all that time repairing it. And I'm going to do some auto corrections for these guys.
Here, and they get help from our friends at Amelie Motor Oil. So at the Amelie Motor Oil Gator Nationals, all the way from Canada, they did not want to miss round number 1. And this is Dan's first time sitting in the race car since they lost the tire. You can actually see the new bodywork on the left side of that machine where there is no wrap, and that's a result of some of the chassis modifications they had to make to this race car to rebuild this car and get it to make round 1. Trip Tatum with John Stewart down there, Gary Pritchett, a lot of smart crew members, a lot of them parts of the World Championship 4-peat that Steve Torrance had. Trip Tatum, who gets help from a bunch of his friends, like Hoops Fire Prevention, the Nitro Ninja Team, MTS, out here, part-time, put one of the best cars in the country in your number 2 qualifier. Tatum off the line first, another pedal fest. Oh, trips in the wall! Trip Tatum's into the wall.
These tricky track conditions had led to pedaling, and pedaling one of these 12,000 horsepower monsters can be a real handful, especially if you're not driving these every day.
Surface with the NHRA, and here's another look. You're going to see these cars both go into shake And look at Tripp. When he gets back into it, it just over-rotates and slaps the wall. And here is where the real ride begins. As you see the left rear tire come apart. And at this point, Tripp has no control. You see him cranking the wheels, the car into the wall. The fluid you see coming out of the front there, David, that is the fuel tank. The fuel sits on the front of these machines, the nitro coming out of that, and then the car just sliding there. And you can see the motor still running, frankly, because nothing has hit the engine. So at this point, it's still getting fuel. It's being pumped through. It's probably hydraulicing at this point. And then you see it backfire finally, and the motor stops running. But that is a heartbreaking way.
With the heartbreak of what happened to Tripp, Dan still ends up your winner. And he pedals it to a 416 at over 300 miles an hour. He did a great job driving it. He thought he felt something a little down low, and he went and smacked the gas and made it down through there. Now the replay shows Dan on the other side, he's even got a hole out, and this thing runs 416, but Tripp has got his hands full. I know how heartfelt this must be for him. You know, Tripp is his own sponsor. He has some little sponsors and stuff like that, but, you know, this car is going to have to be front halved and back halved. And the thing is, he just had this done. So there's going to be quite the expense. I'm sure there's rear end damage, the wing struts possibly. The wing looks like to be okay on the rear, but the front one is you know, that thing's $10,000. That's gone. I really feel for Tripp. Now, after that delay, not only did we have that, but we had rain. We had to return to the pit, wait around, and then come back up, and now we're 2 hour delayed. There's only 2 pair left. We're the last pair. So the track has somewhat been scraped, which they should have done from the very beginning. Not very many cars made it down out of the first 6 pair that went down through there, and it may even caused an accident. Who knows? But maybe there'll be some changes and some protocols put in place when we see conditions like that. Instead of just throwing them out on the track, hey, you know what? Let's make this track safe, and let's get it in the condition that it needs to be in order to put on a good show and not have this pedal fest that was happening. So at this point, I'm not even sure what this track's going to be like. I've got it back down, but hopefully it's enough. It's first round of eliminations. We're against Jasmine Salinas. She's been running really well. She's doing great as a driver. Let's see what we can do. Even though they tried to scrape the track, you know, they went out to like 220 foot and scraped it all the way back to the starting line. The starting line still looks like crap. And actually, after the 200 mark, I don't think it's been worked enough. Now, I've slowed it down a little bit out there. I'm just praying that I've slowed it down enough. And we're just going to have to hit the gas and find out. You know, they always tell you when you get that gut feeling as a crew chief, you should act on it and not second guess yourself. And in this case, I failed. I failed to get this car to the other end. I should have been less aggressive in that area. And here, take a look at what the track looked like.